rubber leg tonight. I feel like a buddy of mine, when I first got right with the Lord back in 1993, I got right with God, and at the same time a buddy of mine got saved. His name was Frankie. Frankie and I started coming to church here back in November of 1993, and shortly thereafter we asked Preacher, what could we get involved in? What could we do around here? And he said, I'd like you to get involved in the bus ministry. Well, back then, to be involved in the bus ministry in the state of Illinois, you had to get CPR training. And so we went down to a particular class down at the community college, and it was like an institution type thing, and there was a trainer there, and he took us through some classroom syllabus, and it was about 45 minutes long, and we all took the test, and I know I did good, Frankie did good, and afterwards they took us into this big room where there was a table, and we were going to do a live demonstration with a dummy. And then if you passed the live demonstration with the dummy, then you would pass the class and you could get your CPR certification. And we walked into the room, and like I said, there was a table much like this Lord's Supper table, and on it was a doll, a mannequin, if you will, of a young girl. It wasn't really a full mannequin, it was just the torso. I think that's what they call it. It was from the head all the way down to just past the waist. The torso had no, or the mannequin had no legs, and the trainer said that the mannequin's name was Annie. Annie had long blonde hair, and she looked like she was, I don't know, about a 12-year-old mannequin, I guess, if mannequins have age. But this is what it looked like. And he said, here's what you do. You walk up to the mannequin and you put your hand underneath her head. And you lift up just like I said, it's a torso, so you lift it up and you shake her 3 times and you say, can you hear me, Annie? Can you hear me? And then you put her up to your ear, and of course you're not going to hear anything. But unfortunately, my friend Frankie was one of those guys that kind of heard voices, you know. And hold on, you're getting ahead of me now. Just hold on. And he was a great guy, but we'd be driving down the road, and all of a sudden he'd just turn around like that and start talking to somebody. He heard voices. He's a good guy, but he heard voices. And so a couple of people went, and it was my turn, and I went up, and I walked up to the torso, and I put my hand under that little girl's head, and I lifted up her head, and I shook her 3 times, and I said, can you hear me, Annie? Can you hear me? And I put her up to my ear, and I didn't hear anything, and I laid her back down and began to give her CPR, and I passed the class. And then came Frankie's turn. Frankie comes walking up, and he puts his hands underneath her head, and he lifts up the torso of that little doll with no legs, and he picks her up, and he shakes her 3 times, and he says, can you hear me, Annie? Can you hear me? And he puts her up to his ear, and all of a sudden he goes, like that. And the trainer said, Frankie, did Annie say something to you? And Frankie says, Annie says, she can't feel her legs.